5mm double pointed knitting needles and a 5mm circular knitting needle. You're going to need 4 stitch markers, scissors, and this is the yarn that I'm using. It's Respun Yarn by Lions brand, and it has a lot of yards. And then I'm also going to be using this Karen yarn. All the details are up on the screen. So what we're going to need to do is combine these two together, and we're going to make a loop. After that loop, I'm going to put it on my double pointed knitting needle, and I'm going to cast on 50. That is a good amount of stitches for me, for my neck area, so that my head can fit through, but it's not too large after. Once I've casted on my 50, I'm going to then turn my work around to the other side, and now the long string should be on our right side, and we're just going to do the regular knit stitch. The reason why we're doing this process is so that we can start working in the round, but first we have to, or I kind of came up with this, I don't even know if this is legit, but first this is the way that I do it. So I'm just going to do 50 knit stitches for this row. Once I've finished these 50 knit stitches and the yarn is now on my right side again, I'm now going to transfer some of these stitches onto the other double pointed needles so that I am now going to be working with 4. So I'm just putting just a couple stitches on one needle, then I grab my other needle and place some more stitches on that needle, and I'm gonna keep repeating that until I have a total of 4. The package on Amazon does come with 5 needles, but I didn't feel like I needed 5 needles, so I just work with 4. Then I'm going to make sure that they're not tangled, and I'm going to be putting the needle right beside the end of my stitches, if that makes sense. So we're kind of making a square shape with our needles, and I'll show you guys from like a bird's eye view what that will look like. Just like so. So we want the beginning of our stitches to be touching the end and kind of in this square shape, okay? Once we have that in position, we are going to attach the beginning of our stitches to the end of the stitches so that we can start knitting in the round. So I'm just going to knit a regular knit stitch here. And we're going to continue making regular knit stitches for all the stitches, but just stop before you reach the last stitch. I'm very new at using these double pointed ended needles, so what I do is once I knit all the stitches off one needle, I place one stitch back on the needle, and then I kind of push the needle down that I just finished with, and then I start to get in position so that I can move on to the other stitches on the other needle, if that makes sense. So now I'm starting to work with these stitches on this needle, and I'm just going to continue by making the knit stitch. So I'm just going to knit these stitches, and once I finish doing that, I'm going to take that one stitch off, push those stitches down, move that over, and then keep working in the round, and then knit these stitches that are next, okay? I will keep doing that until I get to the back here where my little tail is. So I keep going until this little tail. The little tail indicates that that's the back of my work. So this is what my work is looking like. Just keep knitting some rows for your neck area. Once you reach the back of your work, which has this little tail there, it's time for us to add stitch markers. I only did about 3 to 4 rows for my neck area, so now I'm going to add my stitch markers. From the very back where this little tail is, I'm going to count 6 on the left side and place my marker. And then from that one marker, I'm going to count 12 and place a stitch marker 12 stitches away from that marker, okay? The reason being is this is indicating the back of my raglan, and then I will show you how to get the others. So once I have those 12 stitches held down together, I'm going to now count from this stitch marker, I'm going to count 8. So this is going to start the shoulder area or the armhole area of my raglan. So that's my 8 stitches. And then I'm also going to do the same on the other side from the other stitch marker. So I'm looking at my work and I see that the front has a lot more stitches than the back, and I kind of want to make them a bit more even. So I'm just going to shift all the stitches up 2. So I'm going to put a stitch marker here, and then I'm going to take this stitch marker and I'm going to jump up 2 stitches, and then I'm going to count from these new movements that I did 8 stitches so that I can move the 2 back ones. So from here, I'm going to just move that up 2 so that it's still 8 stitches for my armhole. And now the back and the front have a little bit more closer stitches. Okay, that makes sense. Now that I've done that, I'm going to show you guys how to knit the raglan increases. So what we're going to do, we're going to knit and stop 2 stitches before our stitch marker. Once we reach our stitch marker, 2 stitches before it, we're going to knit that stitch. And then we're going to carry up this little area there. There's some yarn, you pick that up, and this is how we're making our increase. You place it on the hook like so. You poke your needle through that angle, wrap it around and pull through, so you officially have done your first increase. And then we're going to do a regular knit stitch, okay? Then you're going to place the stitch marker onto the right side of the needles, and then you're going to make 2 regular knit stitches. So here's one. We finished the row, so now we have to take that stitch back, put it on the needle, push these stitches down, take that needle over, rotate it, and start working on the other side. And we have our last regular knit stitch. Now we're going to pick that yarn up from the middle of those stitches, place it on our needle just like so, and then we have to kind of angle it so that we can poke our needle through that loop that's created, wrap it around our hook, and pull through. And then we have officially done the second increase for that shoulder area. Keep knitting until you reach that second stitch before the stitch marker. We're going to repeat the same process. So you knit that one stitch, then you pull up that yarn in the middle there, just like so. I'm going to show you here because this has a little bit better lighting. Once you pull up that stitch, you're going to come from this angle and poke it through. It kind of creates a loop. Then you wrap that yarn around your hook and you pull it forward. So that was the increase. Then we're going to make 3 regular knit stitches. So this is 1 regular knit stitch. You're going to throw the stitch marker over. Then you're going to knit 2 more regular knit stitches, just simple like that. And then we have to do the other increase. So you have to pull that yarn up from the middle of those stitches, place it on the left needle, and then kind of poke open and go underneath that stitch from that side. Then you're gonna wrap that yarn around, pull through, and then you're gonna continue making knit stitches until you reach 2 stitches before the other stitch marker, okay? That's what you're gonna do for the increase round. So once you have done the increases on all 4 stitch marker areas, we're then going to have to do a regular knit round. So all you're doing is regular knit stitches all the way around. So I'll show you. Once we hit the back of our work with that little tail, all you're gonna do is knit stitches. Even when you reach the stitch markers, it's just simple as you're gonna keep knitting. Okay, so I'm going to just keep traveling all the way around. I think this is what I had to learn. I thought I had to make raglan increases each row, but we actually have to do an increase row and then a regular knit stitch row, an increase row, a regular knit stitch row, and keep going. So once my stitches get a little bit more, I'm gonna then move them onto my circular knitting needles, and it's just gonna make it easier for me to knit in the round. However, there might be some wire that sticks out, so you're just gonna go across from where you're standing and kind of pull that wire through the stitches, and then it kind of brings the needles down, and then you kind of just push those through the stitches, and then you can work in the round. Now, another thing is once you put the needles or the circular needles on the stitches, you might not be where the yarn is, like where right here, like the needles need to be where this piece of yarn is right now in order for us to knit. So you're just going to transfer the stitches onto the right needle until you are at that point where the yarn is that is attached to our yarn ball. So now that I've arrived where the string is attached to our yarn ball, the only thing is that the wire is poking out, so I have to just pull it through, and you can see it's just pulling all those stitches where we want them. And then now I can officially continue knitting. So this row will be my knit row, my regular knit row that I'm working on, and then I'll do my increase row. So I'm going to keep going, do my increases 2 stitches before, going to keep going, keep going, keep going. I ended up doing 34 rows, so that was 17 rows of just increases and 17 rows of regular knit stitches. So I kept going until that fit me. I honestly could have went more for my size, but this was kind of like my first time knitting a raglan, so yeah, so you can see all the increases I did, but this is also with the regular rows. So if you want yours to be a bit larger or a bit more oversized for your size, make sure you're doing more increased rows and more regular knit rows. Mine came about to 7 inches, which would fit me here, so I knew that it was good enough for me to kind of cast off the armholes. Once I reached the back of my work, I said, okay, we have to do a couple knit stitches until we reach this marker to cast off our sleeve area. So I'm going to do these knit stitches until I reach the stitches where I kind of do my increases. So right where I do these 3 regular knit stitches. So I'm going to actually knit these 3 regular stitches. So I'm going to knit one, then I actually don't need the stitch marker anymore because we're done doing our increases. We're just going to knit that and then knit the 3rd stitch. And now the back is fully done. So now we are going to cast off this arm sleeve area. So in order to cast off, you have to knit 1 stitch, and then you have to knit the 2nd stitch, and then you have to carry the 1st stitch over that 2nd loop that we knitted. So just like so, carry it over. You don't want these stitches to be too tight because then you will be decreasing some of the arm area. So you just want to kind of cast this off really lightly, not pulling the yarn too much. So I'm just going to cast off those stitches and stop once I reach the other area where we did increases. So the other stitch marker essentially. Once I reach to where the 2nd stitch marker is, you can see the arm sleeve is cut off. I'm going to then just do regular knit stitches because this is the front of the work. We're not casting it off. So I'm going to do a regular knit stitch, remove the 2nd marker, we don't need it anymore, do the 2nd knit stitch and the 3rd, and then keep going until I reach the 3rd stitch marker, which is where we'll cast off this 2nd sleeve. So everything's looking good right now, and now let's do the 2nd sleeve, okay? Once you are at the 2nd sleeve, you're going to keep those 3 knit stitches, remove that 3rd marker, and repeat. It's just, it's the same thing we did the last times. Then we're going to cast off like you did, so you have to knit 2, carry that 1 stitch over the 2nd, just like so. So it's really not that hard, right? So we've done pretty much the same thing the other areas, but yeah, we're just gonna cast off this last sleeve area, and then you're almost done this raglan. So once I have everything or the 2 sleeves casted off, then all I do is knit in the round. So I'm almost at the back of my work. I just have to do this one side here, remove the 4th and last stitch marker. So I'm just going to knit these 3 regular stitches, remove that last stitch marker, and then I've officially casted off both sleeves and remove the stitch markers. So now that I'm at the back of my work, I'm going to knit this, and then you can see that our panels are like detached. So we're going to attach them by doing a knit stitch to attach it, and then also on the other side is the same thing, so we're going to have to attach that by the knit stitch. So what I'm going to do is, now that I'm here, I've reached my first cast off sleeve, you're just going to do the regular knit stitch to attach it and keep working in the round. I cannot wait to make more raglans because this is actually super simple, okay? So now I'm going to do that to the other side and make sure that we're attaching it by just attaching and making 1 knit stitch. Then I'm going to keep knitting all the way up, or however long you want your top to be. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. So I've finished the top. Okay, this is the back of my work. I've knitted my top for how long I want it to be. Mine reaches 17 inches. Now that I'm at the back, I want to make sure I'm at the back because now it's time to cast off our stitches. So I'm going to make sure I'm at the very center of my back panel. Okay, once I'm at the center of my back panel, I'm then going to cast off like we did the same method we did for our sleeve area. So you're gonna knit two, then carry that one stitch over the second and keep going. Once again, you don't want to be casting these stitches off too tight because then you're gonna kind of cinch in that area for your top, and we don't want it to be like that. So you're gonna just cast off really lightly, and yeah. So I'm going to keep casting off my top, and I'll meet you once I'm there. Once I am on my last stitch here, I'm going to just cast it off like so. And then I'm going to reach into the top of the beginning area there. I'm just going to wrap the yarn around, and then I'm going to pull it through the loop. It's kind of just to secure the front with the end. And then I'm going to do it again in the second stitch and kind of just attach it. You could do your own thing. This is, I don't even know if this is real knitting terms. This is just what I just came up with to do. Sorry for the water sound in the background. We are leaving for camping. So I'm going to chop that yarn off and then pull it through, and then I'm going to tie in all my loose strings like the one at the back and the one at the bottom here, and your raglan is done. I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope that it makes sense and that you really are able to knit your own raglan top. I'm really proud of myself for knitting this, so I hope that you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much, and don't forget to subscribe.